Slants is presented by your local New England Honda dealers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the 16th season of Quick Slants, and we are just around the corner from the start of the Patriots 2025 season. They are halfway through camp, maybe 2/3 of the way now that they finished their second practice with Minnie. How'd it go out there? We're going to have Phil Perry in just a second. Here's the game plan for today's program. The skinny from Minnie, Phil's going to give it to us. What's the Saturday plan? Patriots are going to be playing an afternoon game. They're going to have everybody out there? Will today's performance mean that they have to be? Drake Maye's arc. We're going to talk about the general arc for the Patriots quarterback. Of course we're going to have a poll. Of course we're going to have your comments. We're going to get to all that, but the first thing we need to do is bring in the Senator, Phil Perry, our man on the street out there in Minnesota. I almost said Philadelphia. What's up, fella? What's the poop?
Oh, there's lots going on here, Tom. A very difficult day, though, for the New England Patriots in their second joint practice against Minnesota. All kinds of pressure, not a ton of success in the red zone. Lots of work to do for them going into the regular season.
What happened offensively today? Because it sounds as if it was a little uneven. Also, I just want to point out that you look absolutely jacked. That might be a painted-on shirt for all I know.
Yeah, it's a smedium, Tom. That's the key, is you wear the smediums, makes everything look a little bit better. Here's what the deal was with the offense today. Today was all about the protection for the New England Patriots, or the lack thereof. I had 7 sacks on Drake Maye in that top offensive line unit, 3 of them coming off the left tackle. You could argue this was Will Campbell's worst practice of the summer, because it wasn't just in the 11-on-11 periods. He had a heck of a time with Jonathan Grenard, top edge rusher for Minnesota, in the one-on-one period as well. It feels like things might be moving a little quickly for the number 4 overall pick, Tom. They need him to be solid on that left edge, and today his head was swimming.
Phil, we expected, both of us, that the Patriots would struggle. You have a 4-13 team in 2024 going to see a 14-3 team that has a whole complement of offensive players and a defensive coordinator who unleashes chaos. Wednesday, though, was good. And then last week against Washington, good performance in the one-joint practice, good performance in the game. Were they just due for a little bit of a letdown, or is this a harbinger of a team that maybe isn't as good as we thought it was?
Well, it's interesting because Minnesota, as talented as they are without 2 of, in my opinion, their best players. Andrew Van Ginkel, very underrated edge defender, somebody who I think would have been a great matchup for Will Campbell, because he's not the biggest guy. He's slithery. He can go inside and out. I think he would have given Will Campbell a very good test. Now, Grenard gave him a great test as it is. And then on the offensive side, they were without Justin Jefferson. So this wasn't the Minnesota Vikings at full strength. I think in some ways they were due. I just would, if I'm Mike Vrabel and I'm Josh McDaniels, I'd be going back to the hotel for meetings tonight and talking about that offensive line, because not only did Will Campbell have his issues, you believe in him, you picked him in the top 5 for a reason. I get it. You think athletically, in terms of his mental makeup, he's going to be able to withstand whatever's thrown at him this season. They have issues at left guard now as well, Tom. Ben Brown, who's a backup center, played a lot of center for the Patriots last year. He was elevated as the starting left guard today in place of Jared Wilson. Jared Wilson, after practice began, actually went back inside, so maybe he's dealing with something physically right now. But Ben Brown was not an upgrade at left guard, and Jared Wilson has cooled considerably over the course of the last few weeks. And so if you have issues at left guard and maybe at left tackle too now, and you've got a center, by the way, who was cut by these Minnesota Vikings about 6 months ago, I think you've got an offensive line that really needs to be figured out.
Phil, providing tremendous fodder for worry and concern. And they might have to page Dr. Strange, Dr. Cole Strange, report to the left guard position. Go deep for me on Drake Maye. How did he look? It was pretty positive, all things considered. We're going to get to that more in the program later. But today, what were his numbers like? What was his poise and composure like?
So he was 7 for 12 with those 7 sacks. And I would say, Tom, the silver lining from both of these practices, when you combine them, is that the offensive issues that they experienced, and Wednesday's practice, the first practice, was an up and down day for them too. They traded punches, they traded haymakers. And so when you combine the two, though, the issues when they had them were not due to the quarterback play, in my opinion. 2 straight practices against an exotic defense, 0 interceptions. That, to me, is the key, because they can speed you up, they can confuse you, they can make you look dumb. as a young quarterback, especially at times, this Brian Flores scheme can. So the fact that he didn't look that way over the course of 2 practices, to me, has to be encouraging for the Patriots.
Phil, let's flip to the other side of the ball. First day of joint practices, Patriots more than held their own, it seemed, against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings offense. They had, I believe it was 6 sacks as tallied. How'd they do today? It sounded like a bounce back for young J.J.
Yeah, not nearly as successful a day for the Patriots defense. Very red zone heavy kind of day today. And boy, TJ Hawkinson got targeted early and often. They found mismatches on Hawkinson. Marcus Jones, who's arguably their smallest defensive player, one of the smallest players on the team, going against 6'5", 260-pound TJ Hawkinson. That's a mismatch, Tom. And he lost that matchup on more than one occasion. The Patriots were also without Jabril Peppers today, so let's keep an eye on his health. But without him, you had Jalen Hawkins and Craig Woodson out there. Both of those guys have had good summers, in my opinion, but they got beat deep on a couple of plays as well. Kyle Duggar, if you're wondering, still running with the 2s, even with Jabril Peppers down.
Wow, it's really interesting. It's never a team that lacks for storylines and interests. There's so much to really chew on here. How would you grade the Patriots after 3 weeks of practices, 3 joint practices, a preseason game? How would you grade them? First, give them a grade, and don't do it on a curve. And then tell me where they are in terms of relative to your expectations.
I'm going to give them a B- because in terms of the quarterback play, that has actually exceeded my expectations. And you know, Tom, I'm somebody who's already pretty high on Drake Maye, and I'm already high on Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator coming in. But that relationship has clicked seemingly more quickly than even I thought it would. Now, I understand they have a below-average offensive line. That's how I viewed them coming into camp, and they've done nothing to move me off that spot. I feel the same way about this receiving group. As healthy as Stefon Diggs has looked at times, to me, he's just not that effective, especially when they go into the 11-on-11 periods of practice. He did have 1 target and 1 catch in 11-on-11s today. He had 2 targets and 2 catches in 11-on-11s yesterday, but he is just not impacting defenses on a regular basis, even when he's going against his own. And so they're without a true number 1. Maybe Diggs is a 2, maybe Pop Douglas is a 2, but those guys have shown some inconsistencies, 2 drops from Pop Douglas today that make it really, really difficult for Drake Maye, especially if he's not getting time in the pocket.
People are going to want to call us gullible for trying to at least withhold judgments on places like the interior offensive line and wide receiver, but we have been steady. While reporting that there have been encouraging moments, no one has ever said that these are the 5 blocks of granite and, the fun bunch out there. Phil, what do you think Mike Vrabel's temperament is right now after this practice? Because I was very curious how he'd go into this week and whether he was turning up the heat a little bit. What's he feeling like right now, you think?
Well, on his 50th birthday, Tom, he seemed to be in a pretty good mood before practice. We had a chance to talk to him. He and I went back and forth a little bit. He was maybe suggesting that he thought I was a smart guy, but I wasn't acting like the smartest guy in the world based on a question I asked him about Stefon Diggs. It was all in good fun. But by the end of the practice, I can't imagine he was having a great time based on how his defense and his offense performed. As a matter of fact, it looked like there might have been a birthday cake on the sidelines for Mike Vrabel. Spatula alongside. Tom, I can tell you that thing was not cut into after practice. Now, was that because they had a poor practice and Mike Vrabel basically wanted to cancel his own 50th birthday? Maybe. We'll work to confirm. But there was no cake eaten on the sidelines after practice today. Maybe that gives you some insight as to how he's feeling.
Love to change that cryon. That's the stuff at the bottom to breaking cake not eaten, Vrabel steamed. Phil, Diana Rossini, our great friend from The Athletic, on her Scoop City podcast, spoke to Stefon Diggs. I'm trying to figure this out. We had Todd Downing on Sunday, the wide receivers coach, allude to the fact that Diggs has to do more refinement and he needs to be in the right place at the right time. Now we had Diggs today alluding to the possibility that he's done too much and he might be dealing with something. And he's also saying the coaches feel that way and I feel that way and week 1's up in the air. Do we have a guy who's overextended himself? Do we have a guy who's not in the right place at the right time and is falling down? There seems to be gathering smoke around Stefon Diggs and the notion that this could turn into an issue.
It's interesting, Tom, because, there are little signs that he's just becoming a bit of a pain in the posterior. I asked Mike Vrabel about those very comments that we just played this morning. And he said, did you really believe that, Phil? Did you really believe those comments? I mean, he's out here. He's doing everything. You seem like a smart guy. Did you really believe that? I said, yeah. I mean, he says he might not be ready for week 1. Do you have any doubt? And he said, I don't know. We'll find out when we get to week 1. But he's out here and he's doing everything. I mean, for Mike Vrabel to sort of have to be his public relations assistant and tell us what he really meant in his commentary to a member of the national media, I don't know if that irks Mike Vrabel or if he's just looking to go back and forth with somebody in the media. But between Downing's comments, between his what I would call sort of quiet performance this camp, Vrabel's comments this morning, and the fact that, Tom, he is not planning, is my understanding, on talking to the local media until he plays in a game. So maybe that'll happen this Saturday. I have my doubts. It all sort of adds up to there's a lot going on with this guy for a guy who doesn't look like a number 1 receiver anymore.